Are you having trouble finding hand sanitizer? Well, Spa Treat has you covered. There's no need to go searching high and low. Just visit spatreatofficial.com and place your order on their easy-to-use website. On schedule delivery. One of the great things about this product, Spa Treat Fulfillment Team is working around the clock to provide people hand sanitizer during this time of need and get your order to you as quickly as possible, even faster than Amazon. Spa Treat also has the lowest price of any of its competitors. Spa Treat has 62% alcohol content, and the FDA recommends between 60 to 80 for maximum protection. This one has 62 because it doesn't dry your hands out. I use this stuff every single day. It is fantastic. It's got certified organic extracts with the ingredients in that hand sanitizer that are of the highest quality, and they're designed to leave your hands smelling and feeling fresh while protecting you at the same time. The best part, there's no tricky residue left over. None of that sticky stuff. 4 scents available: unscented, tea tree, lavender, and lemon. And best of all, this product right here is made in the good old United States of America. A lot of companies are having trouble dealing with the current demands, so Spa Treat has dedicated themselves to providing a much needed product in the time of crisis. Spa Treat has better prices, faster shipping, and a larger supply than any of their competition. There isn't even a close second. Visit spatreatofficial.com and enter promo code SPA SPA at checkout to receive 5% off your entire order. That's right. Not only are they offering the lowest price available, but they're also offering our listeners a discount. This promo code is exclusive to Voice America, and only our listeners get this discount. Spa Treat and Voice America came together on this sponsorship in order to provide Americans something they could really need right now: peace of mind. Visit spatreatofficial.com and order yours today. That's spatreatofficial.com, and make sure you use the promo code SPA at checkout to receive 5% off your entire order. spatreatofficial.com. Get your awesome hand sanitizer.
Mark, you're 1 Charlie. Mark, 1 Charlie.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm full of optimism.
Einstein's theory of relativity.
We're still seeing it quite well through that haze.
T-minus 37 seconds.
Spike is growing confident.
E equals MC.
That all men are created equal.
About the future innovations.
And growing strength in the air.
Tear down this weather.
Something's happening coming up on station.
This is Finding Your Frequency with your hosts, Jeff Spinard and Ryan Treasure. It's time to speak up, share your voice, and hear from the thought leaders.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another wonderful episode of Finding Your Frequency. I am your host for the day, Ryan Treasure, and we got a great radio show for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you that may be your first time listening to Finding Your Frequency, we're all over the podcast space. You can find us on your smart speakers on Amazon, Google Home, Sonos, and then, of course, anywhere that podcasts are available. And we drop new episodes weekly, mini ones throughout the week, and then our main episodes come out Fridays at noon Pacific time on the Voice America Variety channel. And we got a great show today. We're going to talk a little bit about some legal, some mergers and acquisitions, some taxes, some different things, because as you guys all know, we are working through what I'm calling is the new normal, as everybody's working from home, and businesses are trying to make decisions about how they're going to bring their employees back into the fold, whether it be continuing with working from home or bringing people back to the office. I know that our staff here at the Voice America Talk Radio Networks are targeting June 1st for bringing our people back in the building. And of course, I've been trying to requisition all sorts of sanitary wipes and masks and gloves and all of those things that people will want when they come back to the office. And of course, if you guys are in an office, we're staggering cubicles, staggering working spaces for those folks to be able to be socially distant. And so kind of an update for you guys. We've been doing some great radio shows here on Voice America. We continue to bring you guys some of the finest talk radio programming in all of the land right here on Voice America throughout the COVID-19. So, if you're sitting at home and you have some downtime or want a little background audio, definitely tune into the live content on the 5 Voice America channels. Today, we're going to talk to a fantastic guest. His name is Trevor Crow. He is the founder of Crow Legal LLC and advises closely held entities regarding M&A, securities, tax, and general business transactions. Trevor, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Hey, I know how you lawyers are. You're not charging me by the hour for this interview, are you?
I just turned off the clock. Lucky.
I think something that we can talk about later too, because I always love having the conversation around value-based pricing with professional services folks. So something we can touch on a little bit later on in the episode. But definitely, Trevor, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found your frequency in life and in business, and what made you decide to wake up and say, I'm going to be a lawyer and I'm going to do M&A and securities.
Well, it's a long story, but I'll get into it. I'll shorten it here a little bit so it's palatable to the audience. But I got out. I'm a Colorado guy, so my firm is located here in Denver, and I grew up just south of Denver, and then went to CU Boulder for undergrad with a business degree, and then I did a couple things. Worked. Always thought about going to law school, but never. When I was graduating undergrad, I didn't want to go right back into school. So I did a couple other things. I actually got involved with in a partnership or in a restaurant for a while under a management contract, which ended up going bad. And we had to hire a lawyer to help go through arbitration on that deal. And so, I was working with a lawyer there, and I saw what the lawyer was getting paid, and I thought, I could probably do this. And I had thought about law school before that, and so that led me to go and sign up for law school, which I did, and I went to DU Law School here in Denver. And I graduated law school in 2009, and so it's kind of similar to now, honestly, as I think back at current law school students that are graduating. It's a bad economy to be graduating law school. The downturn was going on in 2009, and the firm that I was supposed to go work for, which I had just worked at doing transactional stuff as a law clerk, called me, and initially they said, go take the bar and then call us after the bar and we'll get you started. And I studied for the bar and took the bar, and then I called them and I said, hey, I'm ready to go. And they said, well, we actually don't have a job for you anymore. And this is because it's 2009. Economy is in the dumps, and everybody was getting laid off. They basically said, we don't have enough work to fill our associates' plates that we have here right now, and so we can't bring you on. And so I did a number of things. Worked for a judge, did on contract, and then ultimately that firm called me back and said, hey, if you want to come work and do litigation for us, then then we could use your help there, but there's just no transactions going on. And so went back, did litigation for them for a while, and realized I just didn't like litigation. And mainly it was dealing with the other attorneys. That was such a hassle. Discovery disputes and disclosure of information and all that was just it. I just didn't enjoy it. I really enjoyed the transactional side and putting deals together. And so anyway, I kind of was working myself through that firm and was doing some litigation and getting into some of the transactional work, and ended up bouncing around to a couple firms in Denver. And ultimately, about 2 years in, I started to do just straight transactional work, corporate M&A deals and securities work, raising money for companies, and putting out all the documentation together for that. And that's what I just really enjoyed. And so coming out of law school in 2009, you learn something that I think you don't learn if you come out in a good economy environment. And it's that from a service perspective, you either work for somebody who has business or you have your own business. And that's the only two options. You got to have your own book of business or you work for somebody who does. And I realized that, although I think we are really good at what we do at my firm, and especially in the transactions that we do, there's other lawyers in town who do the same work. And I think we're unique, and I think we have a good value proposition, but there's just other people who do it. And so without the book of business, you're kind of subject to somebody else's whims. And the firm that I was at most previously before I started my firm was mainly a real estate firm. And so I was kind of the corporate guy at a real estate firm, and I wasn't, a lot of the clients weren't mine. And so ultimately I had enough confidence that I could go out and start my own firm and do well, and thought that I would be able to, develop clients, and I could run just a corporate M&A and securities firm. And that was February of 2018 when I started, and it's been great ever since. Now, this whole COVID environment has changed things a little bit and kind of slowed transactions down a bit. But I still think I'm still optimistic on things turning around and the ability to, run a firm and still develop clients. And so that's where I'm at.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. What a unique kind of perspective that you have, kind of starting your law career in 2009 with the economy the way that it is, and then going off and, finding your frequency. That's what we talk about a lot here on the show is, people who decide, I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to work for myself. I want to be able to build my own book of business like you were speaking to, and, making that transition in 2018, and then 2 years later, whammo, COVID-19.
Right.
Yeah.
The way I think about it, because I was just, when I first came out, I was really worried about, when's the next deal come? Because as a transactional lawyer, it's not like a CPA who has clients that have to do their taxes every year. My clients may do a transaction, they may raise some money this year, they may not next year, or they may do an M&A deal this year and they may not next year. Or if I represent a seller in an M&A deal, they're off to retirement, and it's, I gotta, where's the next deal coming? Is always a question. And I had just started to get comfortable that there would always be another deal coming, because in the beginning I was always wondering, once we finish this one, is there going to be another one on the, coming down the pipeline? And it took me a while to get comfortable with, yeah, there will be, and it seems to work out. I don't know exactly how it always works out, but it seems to work out. And, I was just getting comfortable with that. And then this hit, and now I started to reevaluate that. But I'm still optimistic. Like I said, I think there's work to be done, and it may be different work, but you just got to go out and get whatever it is. We may be doing more amendments to leases and loan forbearance agreements and things like that. But you just got to be adaptable. And my firm now, I think, is a lot more adaptable than I ever was at any other of the mid-sized firms that I was practicing at before this.
Yeah, I like the term that you use, adaptable, because I think there's, a lot of businesses who are operating, and as you heard me in the opening of the show talk about the new normal. We have technology companies that are pivoting hardcore towards, new technologies like Industry 4.0 and automated factories and, robot repairmen instead of using humans and putting them in, in hazardous spaces. And you have a whole lot of this shift in industry also. I think that as 2020 continues down the road and people become a little bit more comfortable with, getting back on the horse, so to speak, you're going to start to see a lot of manufacturing jobs come back to the United States. And I think with, some of those things, you're going to see a higher turn in mergers and acquisitions, as well as some of the larger corporations like 3M, start gobbling up some smaller corporations. Do you kind of see that on the horizon too, for what you guys are doing in the legal realm of, working on, those types of deals more than capital raises or such, as you rub your crystal ball and look into the future?
Yeah, well, I think there may be a little bit of both. And some of this is industry specific too. Some industries are getting hit hard with this, and some industries are doing well. If you think about the some industries are getting hit hard, and some of them are doing okay. Obviously things like companies like Zoom are doing great, but from a what's going to be out there standpoint, I think there are going to be companies that find themselves low on funds because they've had to weather the storm here a little bit, and so they can, maybe the PPP funds run out they've got a PPP loan, and then their funds run out, and so then they're thinking, well, what's the next? And so we may need to raise money. And I think, at that point, the issue is, well, what's the valuation now? And can you do, are we going to have a down round where, we just raised money at a $5 million valuation or a $10 million valuation. And now the best valuation we can get is, $3 million or $7 million, so we have a down round. And so what can we do there? I think some companies are going to issue, there's going to be more convertible note type deals where companies are going to raise money through a convertible note where we don't have to come up with a valuation. It just says, hey, you lend us this money now, and when we go out and raise a larger round of financing, you'll convert at the same valuation that those new investors come in at, maybe with a discount or something like that. And so I think valuation is a huge issue, and so that's going to be something where companies are raising money, probably using things like convertible notes, because valuation is tough to come by. On the M&A side, I think that you're right. There's going to be some strategic buyers out there who see this market as if they have cash, if they have dry powder ready to put to work, they're going to see this environment as, hey, this is the time where we can come in and gobble up some of these companies at a lower price than we would have got, in a great economy. And so we might be able to go out and be buyers right now. And I think that's going to happen. If I had to, if to make a prediction, I would think that is going to be a big thing here. Strategic buyers, as well as some companies that maybe were looking to sell, may be worried about their valuation and become buyers again to kind of do another bolt-on acquisition and try to sell, 3 years from now. So you could see that with private equity type backed companies as well, I think.
We got to stop for just a second and talk about an awesome product. And when I say awesome product, I mean awesome because I just used it. I used it yesterday. I use it every other day. I'm bald, and I know having a good set of razor blades is amazing. And now is not the time to overpay for razors at the drugstore. Harry knows sometimes it's better to stay inside. That's why they ship directly to you so you can experience the quality of a Harry shave in just a few days from the convenience of your own home. What I really love about it are their shave gels, the low prices. It's just amazing. Join the 10 million people who have tried Harry's and claim your special trial offer by going to harrys.com/frequency. That's harrys.com/frequency. And why Harry's, you ask? Because it's awesome. I'm a bald guy, like I said before, and I know razors. And I know this product, it's fantastic. Harry's is a return to the essential. Quality, durable blades at a fair price, just $2 a blade. That's right, $2. They've cut out middlemen. They have a great German blade factory that's been honing precision blades for a century. That means you get a high quality blade at factory direct prices. You can feel good about your purchase, 100% quality guarantee. If you don't love your shave, let them know. They'll give you a refund. And 1% of the proceeds are set aside for nonprofit organizations devoted to helping provide access to better health care for men and veterans. You guys know Finding Your Frequency. We love to support the veterans. Exclusive offer for listeners of Finding Your Frequency. Listeners of this show can redeem their Harry's trial set at harrys.com/frequency. You'll get a weighted ergonomic handle for a firm grip, 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and a trimmer blade, rich lathering shave gel with aloe to help keep your skin hydrated, and a travel blade cover to keep your razors dry and easy to grab on the go when it's time to do it. Go to harrys.com/frequency and start shaving better today. Yeah, and I see a proliferation in the industry globally for, products like CBD and some of those things too, where you have, these small mom and pop businesses who have their own, whether it be a small footprint, industrial space where they're putting together their products, whether it be lip balms or salves or whatever, CBD is used for. But, I think about these larger companies, like Oil of Olay or, L'Oreal or some of these other companies that are already making lotion and some of those things. I see a huge shift in that space, in the naturopathic space, of some of those large companies who already have the back-end industrial infrastructure to, create those products. I see a lot of them gobbling up mom and pop CBD shops, especially in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think, CBD space hasn't been one that I've kind of marketed to or trying to go out and get more business in. But, that industry is, I think, totally the next one that's ready for kind of a roll up like that, because we even without going out and marketing ourselves as somebody who works with CBD companies, we have probably 4 CBD company clients, and that's just because they've called us because they're looking for counsel. And I think a lot of those are set up as the mom and pop type companies, and yeah, they're still doing well just because the industry is doing well, and most of them are smart people that are putting these businesses together. And I think, yeah, I could definitely see some of the larger companies getting into that space, and they can do it a lot cheaper by acquiring as opposed to trying to set up their own, setting it up themselves within their company, probably.
Yeah, I've been looking at that space for a little while because I'm primed for a stock buy somewhere. I'm like, I know there's money to be made without, actually getting, into the daily efforts of that industry. I'm like, all right, which large company is going to start gobbling up small ones, and which stock do I need to buy so that way I can, maybe find the next Amazon stock, right? Which is everybody's want when it comes to the stock market. Let's find the next Amazon, right?
That's right.
So I saw that you're also a professor at the law college that you went to. Tell us a little bit about what you do in that space as a professor. I know it's got to be a really cool feeling to be able to go back to where you went to school and provide some counsel and services back towards the other students that are kind of taking the same path that you went.
Yeah, no, that has been a lot of fun. And that's, at DU, I teach a class called Taxation of Business Entities. And it's one of those ones where I look at the law school now at DU, and I wish I was going to law school now, as opposed to not necessarily having to go back and do everything over again. But I wish the courses and the things that they have now were available when I was in law school, because when I was there, it was mainly, like most law schools, it was focused on litigation and reading court cases and reading precedent and understanding the rules of civil procedure, which are all great things that you have to know if you want to be in court, or if you want to do, whether it's criminal or civil litigation, you have to know those things and the rules of evidence, and those were all required courses that everybody has to take. But there was very little transactional. If anybody who wanted to be a business transactional attorney, there was very little, very few courses on those topics. And so now that's totally changed. They have a entrepreneurial law clinic. They have a lot of different adjunct professors that come in and teach on transactional issues. So I've been happy to help move the law school in that direction for those students who are interested in doing business transactional type law. And so I teach taxation of business entities, and it's really honestly, I have a lot of fun with it, but I always joke that it's kind of a recipe for disaster, because we're trying to taking a course, creating a one course overview of the taxation of corporations, either both C and S corporations, as well as partnership taxation, which is what most LLCs and partnerships, are taxed under. And those three tax regimes could be, each of them could be a 4 or 5 credit course in themselves easily, and we're trying to teach all three of them in one course. And so it's really just a high level overview, but I think it half the battle in anything is being able to spot the issues. And so that's the idea behind it, is that students can come out of the class and spot certain tax issues that they may have when they're setting up different entities. And if they don't know the answer, they can go find the answer, because at least they know that there might be an issue.
Yeah, no, and I think it's cool that you guys are kind of focused on like a 360 degree holistic kind of approach to law, because I think the majority of people, when they think about going to law school or being a lawyer, that's kind of what they see. I always picture like Law and Order, and you see the people litigating in court about this, that, or the other, and I think there's a lot of misconception probably in the standard community of the differences in lawyers and in law practice and taxation and what you do versus somebody who's a prosecutor or defense attorney trying to get either trying to get Joe to go to jail or trying to keep Joe out of jail, which depends on which side of the aisle you're on, whether you're the prosecutor or the defense. And it's really cool to kind of hear about some of these business pieces as it relates to law, because I think a lot of people, especially when you are an entrepreneur and you're going to go start your own business and you're going to create that LLC and making decision, are you a sole proprietor LLC? Are you going to have a partner? How does that work? I think there's a lot of value in having individuals available for that type of entity, because I think even more now with the proliferation of the gig economy, quote unquote, and a lot of people kind of working for themselves, them understanding the importance of setting up an LLC, even if it's just them that's doing the work, is extremely important from an entrepreneurial standpoint to be able to protect your assets.
Right. Yeah, to be able to protect your assets. And it's not, I think the issue, part of the thing now with the way the secretaries of state for most states work is it's pretty easy to form these entities. And so in Colorado, for example, filing the articles of organization to form an LLC in Colorado is simple. Anybody could do it very easily. Whereas in the past, that used to be something that was a black box where you had to call an attorney for. Now anybody can go online and do it and form it and pay their $50 and they have it. But that's only half the story. You have to actually operate it as a separate business too. So you have to, get a bank account for that entity. You have to make sure that you don't mix your personal funds with your business funds and vice versa, and that sort of thing. That's what gives you the limited liability protection. And so, yeah, there's definitely those sort of issues we deal with every day in and day out. And yeah, even for the gig economy and people like that who are running very small businesses themselves. It's important to think about those and make sure you're complying with the rules there to not only just form the entity, but also treat it as an entity.
Yeah, and not to mention just the inherent form of protection that the limited liability gives you, because let's say you're a gig economy, maybe you're a freelance graphic designer or something like that, and you make a mistake on a project, and your large client decides to sue you for whatever reason. It's extremely important that they can't get to your personal assets and should only be able to go after the assets that you have accumulated as a business or as a sole proprietor in that space. And I think a lot of people who are working in the gig economy specifically, I think they don't think about that. They don't think about that they're out there, and there could be some legal repercussions in the event of a bad business dealing or a gig going the wrong way.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And yeah, I have a feeling. And the problem with that is those are the same people who are probably may not call a lawyer because they're worried about price, and which is a valid concern because there is costs associated with this, with dealing with lawyers usually. And so yeah, that I agree. But it's one of those things where you can pay now or you can pay later a lot of times.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point. Pay a couple $1,000 now or pay a few tens of thousands later, right?
Right.
I want to talk about like the deal, right? A lot of people, they watch TV shows like the Shark Tank, right? And you have these investors that are sitting there, and they're these businesses are kind of pitching their idea, and they're like, all right, yeah, we'll come in at this money and at this percentage, and those are the type of deals that you like to get involved with, right? From a law perspective, because you've got to have an evaluation, know what that business is worth, so you're buying in. How do you go through that process? Just walk us through that, because I think from a listener standpoint, that's probably some of the most interesting topics, especially when you have those TV shows like Shark Tank and you're kind of seeing those different dealings. But what you don't see on Shark Tank is they might have that what you see on television piece, but there's a whole other component of the art of the deal and what's happening from a legal perspective. So kind of walk us through how some of that works with an evaluation. How do you get to that valuation, so that way that what you're worth when you go out and try to do a capital raise or bring somebody in who's going to invest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's a one where my answer is not always the most satisfying, because part of it is it's more of an art than a science. There's not, it depends where the company's at is a big caveat to it, because if you have a pre-revenue company, so for example, or a company that's losing money, you can't run a discounted cash flow model or one of those sort of typical valuation models that you learn in when you're getting your MBA or when somebody's getting their MBA. I do not have an MBA, but you can't run those models and come up with a valuation. So a lot of it is... Oh,
you mean I can't go, I do $1 million a year in revenue times 5 years, so my valuation is $5 million?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can't do that, because a lot of these companies are either just losing money or very low or no revenue companies, and that doesn't mean that they're not, worth anything. I mean, hell, you have companies like Twitter and Facebook and all those who had huge valuations before they even were profitable. And so And that's because
Trevor, I think that's an important point too, right? There's a big difference between revenue and profitability.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. So profitability, they had revenue, but they weren't profitable. But even before they turned on any revenue streams, a lot of times, they still had big valuations, and that happens all the time with companies who are pre-revenue that are building a product and just testing it in the market. And so what people look at that point is, from a typical venture capitalist type looking at well, am I going to invest in the deal? What they're looking for is, what is the total market size? So what is the potential of this company if they can execute on the business plan, and they can create this product that they want to create, and and they can see the vision. If they can do that, what is the total market at that time? Can this be a company that has $500 million in revenue at some point or not? And so they look at that, and then they look at the team, and they say, can this team execute on this plan? And if you have both of those, you have a huge market, and they think that the team can execute on the plan, then the question is, it becomes less of valuation. It's more of, how much of the company do we want to give up for this money? And so at that point, we kind of back into valuation. So if I'm representing a company in that situation, we're going to say, hey, you have this company. If you want to raise $2 million, what do you think that's worth? Or let's just say, you're going to raise $2 million. And so if you want to say you're going to give up 20% of the company for that $2 million, then you're saying you have currently an $8 million valuation and a $10 million post-money valuation. So after you receive that $2 million of funding, you have the $8 million valuation plus the $2 million in the bank. And so now you have a $10 million total valuation. And so that's kind of, honestly, we're just backing into this number. We're talking to founders and saying, hey, well, how much of the company are you willing to give up to raise this amount of money? And so, in a lot of times, though, it depends on who's making the offer too, because a typical VC company they'll be the one to make the offer. So they have a meeting with the founders, and they get the pitch on what the company is and what it does and where it's going. And, in that pitch, the company will typically say, here's what we're looking to raise and why. We need this amount of money to make, 5 hires and do X, Y, and Z in marketing, and to, get our product to the next stage. And the VC will say, okay, that's great. And then they'll come back. If they like the company, they'll come back with a term sheet. And in that term sheet, they will put in a valuation in there, and then the company can either accept or reject, or try to renegotiate what that is. And so, a lot of times these valuations, I guess the point of the story is, a lot of times these valuations are just picking numbers out of the air based on what percentage the founders want to give up in exchange for the money.
Yeah, and I think too, a lot of times, thinking about business, and the company that I work for, we were publicly traded at one time, and then we took the internet radio division private back in 2009, which was, one of the best things for us, because working for a publicly traded company was a little weird, because they were focused on their intellectual property strategy and not so much revenue and profit generation section. So it was weird. So it was good when we went private, because not having to worry about board of directors who don't know a darn thing about internet talk radio making decisions for internet talk radio. But I think in the space that you're talking about too, when a VC wants to invest in the company too, and you have the person who started the company, a lot of times that person who started the company is reaching out to the VC not just for money, but they've come to an apex for themselves, right? They have a good product, they've created something that's great, but maybe they're not the best business person, right? And they need help there. When you see those term sheets, does that come into play sometimes too, where the VC is offering maybe a lower cash, but some additional physical resources for that person to get over the hump that they're trying to accomplish for their growth?
Yeah, I think that's becoming more more and more the case nowadays, since there's been, I think in the past there was just a few VCs that funded, early stage companies, and so they made all the rules. Now there's a lot more of them out there, and so companies, at least companies that are hot companies that can go out and get term sheets from several venture capital firms, they're going to look not only at the money, the percentage they're giving up, but also what else can these guys bring to the table? Do they have good connections? Do they have good other resources that they can come, or is the person that they're going to put on the board? Because usually when they make an investment, they're going to demand a board seat, and is the person that they're going to put on the board somebody that we want to work with? All those come into play. And one other thing I would say to back up on these valuations, because a lot of the deals that we work on are not, very few companies get VC funding. For one, it's less than 1% of people who say they want to get it actually get VC funding. So a lot of the securities offerings we do is just with angel investors or friends and family rounds where they're raising money, and so they're usually instead of the VCs putting out the term sheet like they always do, a lot of times if we're going out to angels or friends and family, we're putting out this term sheet as representing the company, and a lot of times the valuation is not as important as I think some people think, because at the end of the day, there's not, if you're going to invest in a company and it's the idea is either this company is going to fail and it's going to be a zero, or it's going to hit it huge, then if it hits it huge, your valuation, whether you own 15% or 20% of, or really it's probably going to be less once they have more rounds. So at the end of the day, after they've had more rounds and you've potentially been diluted, you're gonna own a few percentages one direction or the other, depending on the valuation that you initially get, and it's not going to lead to too much difference in your ultimate cash out on this entity. And so people usually are less worried about it because they know it's either going to be a zero or it's going to be a big number, and everybody's going to be happy at the end of it anyway.
Well, thanks for shedding some light on that particular subject. I think that, that people are always asking questions in those spaces. And, I want to shift gears just a little bit. And, as we're about 35 minutes into our conversation, I want to talk about what you're seeing in a business standpoint with, with all the shutdowns and COVID-19 and, the economy being the way that it is. I think the last I read, there was, something like over 30 million Americans that were without jobs. And, here in Arizona, this week, we just kind of started opening back up with phase one and, limited access to restaurants and dining with, only half capacity and those types of things, which have been kind of cool. Even though I actually went to a restaurant over the weekend for the first time in, I don't know, like 3 months. And
oh wow, that's great!
It was awesome. I had a whole new, I think, respect for going out and eating. It was one of those things about my wife and daughter. They've been stacked up in the house since like late February, early March, something like that, when they closed the schools down. And so my wife's been working from home, and my poor kiddo, who's only 6 years old, is going stir crazy at the house. They're doing couple hours of schoolwork a day, which wasn't the same as going to school where you have all of that schoolwork spread out with art class and PE and recess and all that kind of stuff. And so big kudos to my wife for managing that. And now the school year is over, and you start thinking about all these different pieces. And, for me, I go, wow, there's going to be so many people that, they still have to work from home. Like there's no childcare, there's no anything that's going on. And all of that impacts the economy. And I'm sure that you've probably seen some impact on your side as well with, maybe less transactions that you're working on. But just kind of, put your finger in the air and feel which direction the wind is coming from. And what are you guys seeing in your space with some of the transactional elements during the whole COVID stuff?
Yeah, well, let me say that I feel you on the family thing here. I have a 6 and an 8-year-old, and my wife and I have been both working from home and taking turns trying to teach through this learning online thing. And it's this is their last week of school, and I'll be glad when it's over. But at the same time, camps are closed.
Yeah,
we had camps lined up, and we just actually got an email today about a camp that's close. And so that's going to lead to more working from home or trying to figure out other options. But from a business transactional side, we had four M&A deals that were in different stages of the process in the beginning of March. I mean, things were going great. We were ready to go, and 3 of them died, and right away, as soon as things all of a sudden hit and started to get crazy really quickly, and these stay-at-home orders came out in Colorado. Just the uncertainty of it all caused 3 of those deals to die. At the time, they said, well, we're putting them on hold, but it turns out that meant they've died. At least
on hold
in
forever.
my mind,
Yeah,
they may come back. I don't know for sure, but I would have thought that there would be word or more talk about it by now. If so, and when I've reached out, there's just been nothing. So one of those deals ended up closing still, and that deal was kind of far enough down the road, and we had really just all we had to do was wire money and close it, which ended up closing. And it was really there was a regulatory issue that we had to pass, and that was the only thing that was outstanding. It was basically a done deal, other than we had to wait 30 days to get regulatory approval. And so once that happened, it closed, and that one closed in the beginning of April. And so, since then there's just been a ton of uncertainty, and I feel like people aren't doing deals. And so what we've been doing mainly is, we've had a couple securities offerings where like I mentioned, I think before, about convertible notes. One of them is a convertible note deal that we were working on.
What are convertible notes? Explain that. I don't think our audience knows what that is.
Okay, so convertible, when you go out and you want to a company wants to raise money by issuing, equity in the company, you could get, straight debt, which isn't equity. If you go get a bank loan or a loan from a private lender, that's one way to bring in money, right? The other way is if you're a corporation, you would issue stock in your corporation to somebody in exchange for money. You could issue preferred stock or common stock, whatever, and that would be issuing equity in exchange for money. Or if you're an LLC, you might issue membership interests in your LLC in exchange for money. And so those are all securities. In general, those are all securities, and so you got to comply with the securities rules. One form of offering is called a convertible note, and it's kind of a combination between debt and equity, in that it starts off as debt, and basically, investors come in, they give the company money, and the note has a maturity date, usually 2 or 1 to 2 to 3 years, and it's kind of like bridge financing, in that you're paying the money, the investor's putting in the money now into the company, and at the end of the term, the company will either have to pay back that money plus interest, like it was a normal loan, or an event may happen in between now and that maturity date where it converts into equity. And so it will become, so let's say it's a corporation, it's that loan will be converted into stock in the corporation at whatever valuation that other investors come in at a later date. So usually it's a company will issue convertible note when it says, hey, we need some money now. We're probably going to raise a big round from either VCs or from a bunch of angel investors later, probably a year or 2 years from now. And so, but for now, we just need some money to get us through this period of time. And so we'll take in money through a convertible note. And then when we go and we raise money from a VC or some sophisticated investor, the money that you put in through this note will convert to whatever equity they get. And you can kind of, rely on the fact that this is a sophisticated investor who's coming in later and is going to do some due diligence and is going to put a valuation on the company, and you're going to get to come in at the same price as them, probably with a discount. We may give you a 10% discount on whatever price they're coming in at. And so that's what your money will convert into equity. And then the company doesn't have to pay back the money as if it was debt. It just now has issued more equity in the company. And so that's hopefully that would be enough to follow.
I think it's pretty smart too from an investment standpoint too. If you have a convertible note, it's like, I can get in now with X amount of dollars, but then when I get my return on my investment, it could be on a higher valuation 3 years from now.
Right. Yeah, you could convert at some valuation, and then you may get, and then if the company keeps its value going, higher and higher in the future, then yeah, you bought in at a lower valuation, and now you're getting in at a higher, or getting paid out at a higher valuation.
Hey, that's like capitalism, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Buy low, sell high.
Right. And so, back to just the economy now. I mean, I think there's going to be more of that probably. But really our M&A transactions have been slow. And I just really in the past week, I mean, I'm not sure when this is going to air, but today's May 20th. And before this week and the end of last week is when we started getting more calls. Honestly, we were pretty slow this whole time until last week. Like I said, at the end of last week, we got a couple calls. We got a couple more calls this week. So my sense is that things are going to start picking up. I think it's going to be slower. As I mentioned in the beginning, I think the work might be a little bit different on what we're dealing with, but I do have a optimistic sense that things are going to start getting back to more business than we've been doing the past month and a half, at least.
I sure hope so. We kind of experienced some similar stuff here with us. I mean, as you know, we do live internet talk radio, and we have sponsors and advertisers, and a lot of our sponsors and advertisers just kind of did the same thing as your M&A deals. It was like, hey, we're going to pause on some of this right now because we're uncertain, and then some of the states are starting to open back up, and people are going back, and I'm reaching out to those guys and saying, hey, what happened to that sponsorship money that you guys were looking at spending back in March and April? And you said let's talk in May and June, and here we are halfway through May, and I haven't heard anything from you. And they're going, oh yeah, we're still on pause.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's been challenging, I think, for a lot of businesses in that respect. And I think because of that possible lack of business that may be happening, there could be some of those companies are probably going to be looking for funding later on this year.
Yeah. I think that's going to be it's going to be tight, for people in any sort of down economy. I think conserving cash is huge. And so to weather the storm, basically, and if you can't weather the storm otherwise, it may be the only options may be to go out and raise equity or raise money through issuing equity, because the banks, especially after they release so many funds for this PPP loan, a lot of them are going to be low on funds to be making loans. I've already heard that there's going to be that there's talk of a cash crunch coming up based on the fact that a lot of banks have extended a lot of funds for PPP loans, and now they don't have a ton of liquidity to be loaning to do normal loans. So normal lines of credit and bank loans may be hard to get.
Well, yeah, and I think the PPP too, especially there's some certain instances where the PPP is could turn into a grant for certain companies depending on how they use the money. And I know that a lot of companies who did get PPP, that stuff's not going to last forever. I mean, it was only kind of a let me help you out for the next couple of months, and I think that if you look at statistics from, like, let's say the Spanish flu back in like 1918 or whatever it was, we're kind of in the same precipice that happened, all those 100 years ago with, here we are in May and in June, and we're going to have our hotter months where we'll have, less of those COVID-19 cases. But what happens in the fall, right? Because I think in the fall, that PPP money is going to be gone. And there's going to be, I think, a whole other twist come fall time where a lot of companies are going to either fail, or they're going to be looking for funding, or they're going to get bought out because they don't know what to do. And I think the uncertainty in all industry and all market spaces is in a place where it seems extremely fragile, even though that people are starting to open up the economy. I still feel like it's a porcelain egg,
Yeah, no, I get that sense too. It's tough because and that's the uncertainty. That's this uncertainty piece that kind of freezes everybody. And if this thing comes back and we have another wave of outbreak of COVID in the fall, then it could send everything back down into the dumps. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but it's definitely a possibility that we need to consider.
Yeah, and I think a piece of advice, and I hope you'll agree with me, for any business or even personal person, like, save on to that cash, right? Cash is king. Streamline your operations, reduce your overhead, anything that you can do to, keep the lifeblood of your business or even your personal life in check is to make sure that you're not overtly spending or those types of things, because who knows what's going to happen in the fall? Who knows what's going to happen in 2021 in the early part of January, February of 2021? We could be right back where we are now.
Agreed. Yeah, conserving cash is huge. Unless, I would have one caveat, unless you're deciding whether to fund your marketing expense for finding your frequency, then you would go ahead and make that payment.
Yeah, send that over to Voice America. We'll care of Ryan Treasure.
but no, it's the point. I think it's an interesting question too, because as everybody pulls back and stops spending, I think it's a good time to take a look at your operations and say, hey, where are we overweight? Where are we spending more money than we need to on, unfortunately, on employees, on maybe software or things that you have that you don't use, or memberships or subscriptions that aren't used. Where can you reduce maybe off the amount of office space you have, or get lower lease prices and things like that. Like, those are all huge things to reduce and take a look at now. At the same time, I've done more on marketing recently, because I think now's the time to actually spend on some marketing stuff. Also to keep, because that's the lifeblood of your business a lot of times, and how you keep things coming in the door. And so I think if there's one area where you may want to add on to, it might be the marketing area. Whereas the other overhead expenses, certainly slash and cut as much as you can. But if you're going to slash marketing and that's going to result in less revenue or less business coming in the door, then that doesn't help you.
Yeah. So my neighbor works for Intel right here. Intel's a big employer here in the Phoenix area. They have 6 million square foot campus, they call it, right? And I was talking to him yesterday, and they've been making plans. Before it was like, let's make our campus as big as it possibly can so we can house all these people, and we're going to have food courts and all these amenities for our employees. And now they've completely changed their entire outlook on the way that they're managing employees. And I think you'll probably start to see a huge shift in work at home employees, telecommuting. I was thinking about that too, like, for any business, if you have a space of cubicles and, people are just commuting back and forth to go from their car to their cubicle to back home. It's like, what can you not do at home that you're doing in a cubicle now? Can you not do that at home? Which thus in and of itself is going to, make your footprint smaller. Maybe you're the building you need to acquire is less. You have less overhead when it comes to electricity, especially here in Arizona in the summertime. You have a building full of 50 employees, and you got to keep the dang thing 77 degrees to keep everybody happy. And the next thing you know, you got thousands and thousands of dollars of electric bill because you're trying to keep everything air conditioned. Versus maybe you have a smaller space, more people are working from home, and you're not necessarily dealing with some of the overhead that relates with the employees being in the office. And then of course you get I think sometimes enhanced productivity, and I think that's what a lot of employers are really focusing on now is if my people are home, are they still as effective at home as they were when they were at the office?
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge question in my mind, and I'm sure a lot of people have done, especially bigger companies have done studies on this and looked into it more. I mean, I feel like I can be just as productive at home most of the time. It depends, what's going on with the kids, but I think that's a huge question. And if everybody can be just as productive at home, then why are we spending so much money on this office space?
Yeah, that's 100%. I was telling my wife yesterday, I was like, what I can get done between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. in the morning if I'm at home? Do you know how much stuff I can get done before the kids start bugging me for breakfast? Or whatever the case may be. I'm like that from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. That's like the golden hour of working from home, I swear.
Yep.
Trevor, thank you so much for joining us on Finding Your Frequency. It was a great conversation. I had a lot of fun, learned a lot of different things. I want to urge our listeners to go check out your website. which is www.crow.legal. Go check out the website. And of course, if you guys are, thinking about raising some capital and you need some assistance in that space, Trevor can help you. He's in the Colorado area. And I'm sure that if he can't help you, he knows somebody who can, right?
That's right. Yeah. We feel free to call with anything. We'll be the first ones to tell you if it's not in our wheelhouse, and we usually know somebody who can help you. I know your audience is across the United States, and just we do deals there's usually a multi-jurisdictional rules that allow attorneys to practice transactionally in other states, and so we do deals in most states. And so if there's anything that comes up that is either raising money or lower mid-market M&A deals, would love to talk to you.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much for joining us, Trevor. Let's get a crowd in there. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Finding a Frequency right here on the Voice America Talk Radio Network. Please make sure if you're listening to the show, give us 5 stars instead of 4. Me and Trevor, we deserve that, right, Trevor? 5 stars.
That's right.
Yes.
5.
You guys can check us out on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the places where podcasts are at. You can download the Voice America mobile application, whether it be on your Kindle, iPhone, or Android. We're all over the place. Thank you guys again for tuning in to this episode of Finding a Frequency, and make sure you come back next week right here at 12 o'clock Pacific time to listen to some more right here on Finding a Frequency. Stay tuned.